Another flat performance from the offense last night gives the Mariners their third loss in 4 games. We'll be discussing that more on today's episode of Locked On Mariners. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Tuesday, June 14th, 2022, and this is the Locked On Mariners podcast brought to you by Blue Nile. Make your moments sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Mariners listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement jewelry as well. Use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. I'm Ty Gonzalez. He's Colby Patnode. We cover the Mariners over at InsideTheMariners.com. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at LO_Mariners. Follow Inside the Mariners at Inside Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez. That's DANE GNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. Be sure to also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Control Zone. We typically post 2 additional shows on there every week and get into some bigger ideas and bigger topics, whereas Locked On Mariners covers more of the day-to-day with EMs. We also get into some non-baseball discussions on Control the Zone as well. It's a fun time, so be sure to check it out. Again, that's patreon.com/Control the Zone. And if this is your first time joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast, welcome to the show. If you like what you hear, give us a follow or subscribe wherever you're listening to this. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and give this video a thumbs up. We greatly appreciate it. So we're going to be talking about last night's loss to the Twins, 3-2. The Mariners fell to the Twins. We're also going to be talking about Jesse Winker. Is it time to move him out of the leadoff spot? And we also have a really fun pitching matchup going on tonight between Joe Ryan and Logan Gilbert. We'll get into that later on in the show. But first, let's reflect back on yesterday's ball game. 3-2, the loss against the Minnesota Twins to open up this 3-game set down at T-Mobile Park. Chris Flexen gave up a 2-run home run to Byron Buxton to start this game. Middle fastball. Just can't do it against Buxton, who entered last night's game leading Major League Baseball in F4 in the month of June. He has been sensational, and he was once again a problem last night for the Mariners. But Flexen did kind of settle in a little bit there after that home run. He goes 5 innings, just limited the damage to the 2-run home run on 7 hits, 5 strikeouts, 2 walks. He also led the game in swings and misses with 15. I believe that also might be a season high for him, because that's typically not a huge part of Flexen's game. So seeing 15 from him, kind of jarring, to say the least, frankly. The Mariners offense was a little bit better than it was against Cutter Crawford and the Red Sox the day before, but still not very good and still not capable of taking advantage of some opportunities that they had, especially late in the game. Taylor Trammell had a home run that snapped a 0-for-18 skid that he was on at the time. He also walked and then was replaced by Scott Service instead of Dylan Moore in the 9th inning with a righty on the mound, but we might talk about that later on. That was a weird decision by Service. Couple of weird decisions by Service in this game. Cal Raleigh still going strong. He led the team in hard hit balls last night. 3 of them. 2 of them didn't record a hit, and they were the 2 hardest hit balls that he had, but the 3rd hardest hit ball that he had actually went for a double in this one. So Raleigh's still going strong. He's 4th in catcher F4 right now for the month of June. So he's having himself a nice little month. Of course, we talked about him, I believe it was on Friday. And so he's kept it going ever since then. So Colby, I what's your just overall takeaway from this loss? Is it service? Is it the bats? What is it? Talk to me here.
It's the players. I mean, there's only so much that Scott Service and his staff can do. Players have to play better, and you look at guys like Jesse Winker, who actually had a decent day last night, but it's just not near enough what you need from him. You look at guys like Eugenio Suarez, who had another disaster of a night. That's 3 in a row, more or less. Abraham Toro went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. His OPS is down around 555 now, and going down. Yeah, you didn't get enough from those guys. You know, the Twins threw 7 arms at you, and all you could muster was 6 hits against really only 1+ arm out there in that bullpen. And it's Duran and whatever. I mean, when he has success against you, fine. But the Mariners only hit 2 balls hard off of the Twins bullpen, and the Twins bullpen not that good. So it's a sad sight. 11 strikeouts. This team is just not going to. This team doesn't have enough power throughout their lineup that it can survive striking out 10 plus times. I think they've now struck out 10 times or more in 5 of their last 7 games. You can't do it. You're not going to generate enough runs because you don't have that power. You also don't have that depth. So, God forbid Ty France has a 1-for-4 night. You're probably not going to score a ton of runs, and that's not fair to Ty France. That's not a good recipe for success. I mean, nobody last night had more than 1 hit. Only 3 guys reached base twice. Or sorry, only 2 guys reached base more than once last night. J.P. Crawford and Cal Raleigh are the only 2 guys who hit more than 1 ball hard last night. It's just a mess. Everybody but Adam Frazier had a strikeout, and Dylan Moore had a strikeout last night. It's just this lineup is not equipped to strike out 10, 11, 12, 13 times and consistently put up runs, especially when Jesse Winker's not hitting right now. Ty France is in a little bit of a slump. He's starting to come out of it. Suarez is going through one of his awful stretches where he doesn't look like a big league hitter. Frazier's starting to kind of come back around a little bit. He's having a pretty nice homestand, some bad luck here and there, but Toro's been a nothing. Tramel's been on a pretty big slide before that home run last night. It's just there's so many easy outs in this lineup right now that you have to put the ball in play, particularly against guys like Chris Archer and Caleb Thielbar, and it's Jarrell Cotton. Like, these guys aren't great. They're not good. And the Mariners just couldn't really threaten them even. So, yeah, it's a bummer. But to me, it comes down to strikeouts. You can't strike out 10, 11, 12 times, not with this lineup, and expect to win. You have to put the ball in play.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's another favorable pitching matchup on paper that they just blow pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Archer came into this game sporting a walks per 9 of well over 4. He had an ERA of 3.65, but that came with FIPS and the low 4s, and you got to be able to take advantage of that, and they just didn't. They get a run off of him, and it was unearned. That's just unacceptable if you're the Mariners. And then you mentioned all the strikeouts, etc. They need to be better. The offense needs to be better. And of course, Julio Rodriguez was out of the lineup for most of this game. He pinch hit in the 9th, and that kind of, that was the Trammell decision. Would have rather seen Trammell hit against the righty Emilio Pagan instead of Dylan Moore, and just had Julio pinch hit for more on the next at bat, but whatever. But yeah, this shows you that you take one of these guys out of the lineup, whether that's Julio, whether that's JP, or whether that's Ty France, and it's just it's an ultimate disaster. And so,
well, and Julio's been sliding too. So
yeah,
it's the frustrating thing is you lost 3 of your 4, and in those 4 games, you have not faced a pitcher that is better than a number 4 starter. In fact, I would say you haven't faced one that's a quality number 5. Cutter Crawford is not a number 5. Rich Hill is barely a number 5. Michael Wacha, I guess, is the one exception. He's probably a 4. Archer's a fringe 5. And you just, aside from handling your business against Michael Wacha, you haven't had any kind of consistent offense. And so, it sucks for the pitching staff. They've allowed 5 runs in their last 18 innings, 2 losses. That's unacceptable. So,
well, and the Mariners entered this homestand leading Major League Baseball in home WRC plus. They were at a 134 WRC plus at T-Mobile Park heading into this homestand, and that has, of course, taken a pretty significant dive. There has been no sense of home cooking whatsoever aside from that game against Wacha. And it's really weird that of all the pitchers that they actually got to in this, it was Waka, who's had a great year so far, at least in terms of the numbers, right?
Mhm.
And then they struggled against Archer, Hill, and Crawford. That's just you can't do it, can't have it, just can't have it. Frankly, they need to be able to take advantage of these matchups more because they aren't. And it's crazy too because we know that they're capable because they have fared pretty well against actual good pitchers this year.
Mhm.
It's just it's mind-boggling what has happened against these lower tier arms with the Mariners offense. But hopefully they figure it out. Joe Ryan on the bump tonight for the Twins, and I mean, he's been really good. So hey, maybe the Mariners have a shot tonight. So maybe they're gonna explode for 6-7 runs tonight, or what have you. That's kind of been the way that this year has gone. We'll be talking more about that series in just a moment, but real quick, a reminder: this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning like is your Odyssey an LX or an EX, and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry. You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket, so why choose to spend 30%, 50%, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? For example, a Honda Odyssey fuel pump is $353 from a chain store, whereas with Rock Auto, it's only $216. Plus, Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years, and their prices are reliably low for every customer. So go to rockauto.com right after you're done listening to us and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. You're listening to Locked On Mariners. Thank you again for making us your first listen of the day. And just a reminder, the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft starts June 16th here on the Locked On Podcast Network. With over 50 insiders, nothing equals the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft. Again, first pick is June 16th. Search Ultimate NBA Mock Draft and follow now so you don't miss a pick. So let's talk about tonight's matchup between Joe Ryan and Logan Gilbert. Gilbert was not great against the Astros in his last start. In fact, I would say that relative to what he can do, he was pretty bad. He gave up 7 hits. He did go 6 innings and only gave up 3 runs, but it was not very pretty. What are you hoping to see out of Gilbert tonight as he looks to bounce back?
Yeah, with Gilbert, it all starts with the fastball command. We all know this, and there have been bouts where he has struggled to control that pitch. We remember the little trip down to Florida where he walked, I think, 4 guys in each of those starts. It's something that happens on occasion, and it's not something Gilbert is equipped to pitch around. He'll be okay. He'll work through it, but he's not going to give you the desired results unless he has that fastball command. So it starts there. It's I think the changeup is going to be a pretty important pitch tonight. The Twins don't have a ton of lefties in their lineup, but Luis Arraez is, the best hitter in baseball right now, at least in terms of average. Max Kepler certainly has some big time power. Trevor Larnach is a young up and coming player who's playing pretty well. So the changeup is going to be important. And then you have to find a way to get out Buxton. Don't let Byron Buxton beat you. Really, he's the scary bat in this lineup. I'm not that afraid of Carlos Correa. Not that he can't do damage, but Correa doesn't take over a game. Buxton will and does. So yeah, I think it's going to come down to, you have to get the lefties out, and then you have to find a way to control Buxton. The fastball slider combo should come into play here, but if Gilbert doesn't control it well, if he doesn't command both of those pitches against Buxton, he can win this game for Minnesota by himself. So that's really what it's about. It's about getting Arraez out, finding a way to do that. Good luck. And then facing Buxton either with nobody on base or finding a way to handle Byron Buxton. And if you can do that, you got a good shot at beating the Twins. Their lineup is pretty deep, but it's not a juggernaut. So Gilbert has a shot to perform pretty well tonight. But it's all about command with him. Control and command, throw strikes, stay out of the middle of the plate. He'll be fine. If he can't do that, I mean, the Mariners kind of need innings from him because 3 of the last 4 starters have only gone 5 innings. And the bullpen is getting a little taxed, and there are no days off on this road trip. So they play another, what is it, another 7 games in 6 days. So, yeah, it's one of those things where they need innings from Gilbert tonight, because the bullpen, while it's not in terrible shape, it's had to cover, 14 innings in the last 4 days. You don't want to ask them to cover 4 more against the Twins tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, try to avoid that at all costs. And to reiterate what you were saying, avoid Byron Buxton at all costs. Quite frankly, like that would behoove Logan Gilbert and the Mariners tonight. The Buxton is he's one of the best baseball players that I've seen when he's healthy and performing the way that the way that he's been over the last couple of years. Just defensively, what he's able to do, and now that he's figured it out at the plate, I mean, he's just ridiculous. He's definitely turned into, over the last 6 or 7 years since he got drafted, however long it's been now since he got drafted, maybe it's even been longer. It's been a while now, but there was obviously the talk about him being the next Mike Trout. He's hit that now, like pretty much. He's just got to stay healthy. Because, like, when he is healthy, he pretty much is Mike Trout. Like, that's, like, defensively, offensively, the guy is just a ridiculous human being. He's a ridiculous baseball player. So try to avoid him at all costs, because he, like you said, will take over this game without hesitation. And we'll see, what this offense is able to do against Joe Ryan. Like I said earlier, it's... whenever they face an actual good pitcher, they seem to do pretty well for the most part. And, even if they're going up against someone like Kevin Gossman or Max Scherzer, who they only got a couple runs off of in those games, still did enough to win those games. So maybe tonight they'll be able to do just enough to beat Joe Ryan and the Twins. It's going to be difficult, though. And, this Twins lineup as well, just going back to Gilbert for a second, it's going to be a little bit deeper, presumably, than it was last night, because Jorge Polanco was not in the lineup last night. Polanco, I would assume, is going to be in the lineup tonight, and he's had a good month of June. Not a great year overall, but he's been pretty hot as of late, so got to watch out for him as well. And, of course, Max Kepler, who's kind of struggled over the last couple weeks, was... he's drove in the game deciding run last night as well. So you got to look out for him as well. They got a few lefties in this lineup that should cause some headaches for Gilbert. We'll see how he responds to that. So earlier you mentioned Jesse Winker, who's been struggling this year, and he's pretty much operated under the approach of 1 step forward, 2 steps, maybe even 3 steps, maybe even a million steps back. At times this year, it seems like he's turning the corner, and then it just kind of all falls apart. He's been in the leadoff spot since May 24th, but is it time to move him out of there? We're going to be talking about that in just a moment. But real quick, a reminder, this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by Blue Nile. Whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as them with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Blue Nile has simple online tools that let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft their perfect engagement ring, and each ring will be a one-of-a-kind. Looking for fine jewelry but having trouble choosing? Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Mariners listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement jewelry as well. Use promo code LOCKEDON, that's LOCKEDON, plus every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. So Colby, Jesse Winker, as I said, has been in the leadoff spot since May 24th. That's historically been the spot that he's had the most success in, and that's why they put him up there, even though that he wasn't really doing anything to necessarily earn that role. They were just kind of hoping that would help him fix some things, but it really hasn't so far. He's still struggling. He's still hitting under 200, in that leadoff spot. He's walking, but walks will only do so much for you. And yes, walks are a big part of a good quality leadoff hitter, but he's just not really producing anything else outside of that. And he's striking out more now. That's just becoming a huge problem for him. So I'll ask you this because, of course, the Mariners don't have many other options to go to here. I think there's one, and I'm sure you'll mention them here, but, who do you think should replace him in the leadoff spot if you think that he should be taken out of there?
Yeah, he absolutely should be removed from the leadoff spot. It's not working. He's already struck out 15 times this month, and in the entire month of May, he struck out 18 times, and in the entire month of April, he struck out 12. So, not making consistent contact. The numbers are a little bit askew because he did have an 0 for 6 thrown in there, but it still exists. So, yeah, it's time to take him out of the lineup. He's just not producing like you want, and you can't afford to sit around and hope that the numbers will turn, and they should turn in theory because you look at kind of the underlying numbers of this, and he's should be a lot better. The numbers should be a lot better than they are. He's still hitting the ball pretty hard. He's not chasing. He's not swinging and missing all that much. The walk rate is elite. The xWOBA is very, very good. The X batting average is very good. He's just not really finding the barrel. He's just fighting his swing a little bit. And the Mariners are in a position where they can't really afford to wait around and just give him as many at-bats as possible to make sure he can fix it. The offense is struggling right now. Jesse Winker is a guy who at some point should turn it around. You kind of have to trust the back of the baseball card here. But right now, results are all that matters. The expected stats don't mean anything right now. And the Mariners are, push themselves back up to the cliff of heading into July and not playing meaningful baseball even by July. That's a huge problem. And it's definitely a step back if that's the case. It's not the end of the rebuild and, oh my God, we have to fire everybody like some people seem to think, but it's definitely a step back, and that's unfortunate. And Winker, like it or not, has had a pretty big hand in the setback because he just hasn't lived up to expectations. So It's time to move him down. He really has to work on his swing. I would try to get him a few days off here and there. It's not working. It's time to make that move. You gave it a shot. It's not working right now. And again, like you said, there's not a ton of other options that are a better fit at the leadoff spot. I personally would just hit Ty France leadoff. If it's not Ty France, it probably should be JP Crawford. You have to get guys into the leadoff spot who are producing, right? And so there's really only two options for that. Frazier's starting to produce a little bit more, but he's not ready yet. Julio is on a backslide a little bit right now. He's chasing those sliders. The off-speed stuff low is really getting him right now, and pitchers are going to continue to exploit that. Watch Joe Ryan throw him nothing but sliders and curveballs tonight. So he's not really an option. So it pretty much comes down to Ty France or JP Crawford. I think Winker needs to be hitting 5th, 6th, 7th until he gets things figured out. And like I said, it's unfortunate because there's not a lot of options. But that's unfortunately the team put a lot of faith in Jesse Winker being Jesse Winker from the get-go. And you understand why they put that much faith in him because the numbers back it up. But unfortunately, that's what happens when you don't have a backup plan. And so the Mariners right now have to scramble a little bit. That's their own fault. And but I don't think that just, banging your head against the table is the solution here. So you got to move Winker down. You got to move Crawford up or Ty France up. You have to get those two guys as many at bats as possible. And the only way to do that is to hit them one or two in some order.
Yeah. Just because there aren't many options doesn't mean that there aren't better options. There's two.
Yeah.
There are two. And you mentioned both of them there. But let's be real about it. They're not going to move Ty France into the leadoff spot.
They should. But
they should, but they won't. So my choice here would be J.P. Crawford, right? Because he doesn't strike out. He's striking out 15% of the time. That's a career low. He's walking 11.4% of the time. That's a career high right now. He's hitting for 45 WRC plus. He's slashing 297, 386, 434. He's had a couple of hiccups here and there, but overall has been very consistent throughout the season. That's someone that you can you can rely on him now. I think it's time at this point. The sample size is large enough this season that you can trust JP Crawford. That this is probably who JP Crawford is for the 2022 season. Is that who he's going to be in 2023, 2024? Doesn't matter. That's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about right now is just how to fix this lineup, how to make it a little bit better, and you should be guaranteeing JP Crawford the most at bats in this lineup right now.
It doesn't have to be a long-term thing either. In fact, you hope it's not. You hope it's not. But Crawford's done it before. Right now he's producing. He's your second best bat, sadly. And so putting him, 1 and 2 also keeps the lefty-righty thing that Scott is obsessed with for some reason. Scott cares way more about handedness than I ever will. I don't get it. I don't like it, but whatever. Just got to accept it. And yeah, like I said, Winker unfortunately probably hits 5 or 6, and I say unfortunate because that means Suarez is probably hitting 4, and Suarez in a good lineup should probably be hitting 6.
7th, honestly.
Yeah, and it probably also means that Adam Frazier has to hit somewhere in your top 4 right now, which, but I mean, who's the better option, right? If you have JP, France, and Julio in your top 3, what's the better option there?
There isn't.
So, yeah, you're kind of stuck, and there's not much you can do. So you just have to do what's best for the team, and that means moving Crawford out of the leadoff spot.
Winker.
Sorry,
yeah. Crawford is he's a better hitter right now. France is a better hitter right now. And I would say that Winker, just going off a track record, is probably the most talented hitter in this lineup. Maybe it's Ty France, but you can't just go off a track record and talent anymore. You can't just go off a process anymore. You're too deep into the season now for process to reign supreme. And we're process over results guys here, but even us at this point, it's just we're kind of over it. Like I just.
But you're probably doing more harm than good right now.
Yeah.
He's got some serious work to do on that swing. So like I said, it's certainly not, you're not giving up on it. You're not exploring trading Jesse Winker at the deadline. Like you're not doing any of that stuff, but it's just acknowledging the reality. Right now, Jesse Winker is not a good hitter.
Yeah.
There are a lot of underlying stats that suggest he should be, but he's not. Yeah. So it's at some point you just got to pull that trigger, and it's the same thing. We could have the same discussion with Abraham Toro. We almost did. It might be time to send Toro down and just let Sam Haggerty get some at bats. I mean, it's not good, but again, when you don't go out, you don't go get the Jonathan VRs, when you don't go, and get the legitimate backup plans like you and I wanted the Mariners to do all winter. Sometimes you got to lie in the bed you made, and this is the bed that Jerry and his crew made. They decided not to back up Winker, which I think that's pretty understandable. But they also decided not to back up Kelnick, and despite saying, no, we're not going to trust Kyle Lewis for anything, they did, because they didn't go out and get anybody better. So they didn't go get an emergency infielder in case Adam Frazier's second half was legitimate. They didn't go out and get somebody in case Abraham Toro's September was legitimate. They just kind of assumed the best for everybody, and now they're paying the price, and by extension, so are we. And it's unfortunate, and at some point, you feel like Adam Frazier and Jesse Winker, their track record is so good they will eventually turn it around. But will it be too late? Maybe. I mean, we're not there yet, but every day you fall a little bit further behind, it gets harder and harder and harder, and at some point, you're not even going to be able to justify going out and getting the big pieces you want, because if you're 7 games back with 6 teams to pass on July 1st, you're not a contender. So you got to start turning it around. It's a tough homestand. It's been a tough 9-game stretch where you're playing 9 games in 10 days against 3 playoff teams. The Twins, the Red Sox, the Astros, they all have a very, very good shot of going to the playoffs this year. So it's tough. It's certainly not an easy stretch, but It's when you have to find
But
a
the
way to let
Mariners
it.
were supposed to be a team that could compete with these teams, you know, a
And
little
to
bit
be
better.
fair, they have been. They haven't
Yeah.
gotten blown out
Yeah.
at any point. All these games have been super competitive. They could have won all of them. They could have lost all of them, but that's kind of what the Mariners are. And they just haven't gotten the big hit, or they haven't gotten the big out. They've been just a little bit worse than these teams. And a big part of that is that they haven't gotten what they needed from Jesse Winker, Adam Frazier, Robbie Ray, the guys they brought in, and Abraham Toro, the guys who we asked for them to back up. They didn't get anything from Kelnick because they didn't put in safeguards. So it's just one of those things where that's why I'm sitting here looking like a moron, pounding the table for guys like Clint Frazier and Yerman Mercedes, because they didn't do it. They didn't put in those safeguards. So now we're sitting here saying, should Sam Haggerty get more at bats than Abraham Toro? That's gross. And I like Sam Haggerty, but no. The answer should be no. But it's a legitimate question.
Yeah, not in a year where you were supposed to be contending. Just guys like Sam Haggerty and all that, and naturally that's going to happen because injuries are going to happen and stuff like that for contending teams. I mean, shoot, look at some of the players that the Yankees have run out, over the last couple of years at times when injuries have happened. But it shouldn't be to this extent that it's happening, and there was just too much faith put in guys like Abraham Toro, like Dylan Moore, even like Jerry Kelnick, and it's kind of blown up in the Mariners' face. And the Toro discussion is probably something that we're gonna have maybe on tomorrow's episode. We might get into all of this a little bit more, but for now, that's going to do it for our show today. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at @LO_Mariners. You can follow Inside the Mariners at Inside Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, that's DANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. And thank you again for making us your first listen of the day, just like you do here every day. Now make your second listen of the day Locked On MLB. That's where Paul Francis Sullivan, and please call him Sully, brings you his unique perspective on the Major League's present and past. It's free wherever you get your podcasts, just like us. So have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Go M's. Peace.